In the dark castle, the lone man stood with longing. Even after all the souls he had stolen and all the lives that had been lost, he had no remorse. Standing before a huge magic circle, the black mage was ready to turn into a monster just to get back to her. Karma, the more good deeds one accumulates, the more good things will come back to them, including money, fame, and even love. KY chose to live with nothing but virtue and expected to receive good fortune in return. Now he can only wonder where he went wrong. No matter how much effort he put in, his good intentions always turned their fangs on him. The young man had just turned 25 years old and dedicated his life to doing only good deeds as a child. He once climbed a tall tree to retrieve a soccer ball for other children. After reaching very high with a big smile on his face, he managed to get his hands on it and throw it back to those waiting below. They superficially thanked him after catching it and turned around to resume their game. The tree ladder is knocked over, but they don't even care. Ignoring the cries of the boy who helped them, feeling desperate and out of options, he decides to jump from the top as he impressively lands flat on the ground. The sheer force leaves him with a bruised ankle. It was so unfair, especially since he was only trying to do something good, as if proving his point. The ball from earlier hits his face. He has always tried to do right by those around him. One day at school, he saw a bun lying in the middle of the hallways. Thinking someone dropped it, he picked it up with the intention of taking it to the lost and found. Before he could do that, a high-pitched voice called out to him. It was a group of rude boys accusing him of taking the bun from the girls' bathroom. The mere thought of it was ridiculous, but he couldn't defend himself as some nearby girls were already calling him a peeping Tom, with disgusted and mocking faces, all labeling him as a weirdo. He tried to correct the misunderstanding several times. However, one of the boys already had his hand on him, saying that he hated those people. With his incitement, they all started to trample on Kyo's defenseless body. Even after growing up a bit, the situation didn't change. Every time he tried to do something good, he always ended up suffering for no reason. A beggar once reached out and asked him for some change, so he searched his pockets for something to give. He barely had anything and probably wouldn't make it through the month with what he had. Apologizing, he handed some coins to the poor man, who surprisingly scorned him for giving so little. As he tried to understand what he had just heard, bird droppings suddenly hit his head. The beggar said that it serves him right for being a piece of trash. It was all too unreasonable and as if the world had turned against him. But there was one thing he knew for sure. That was that he would never give up. Considering everything that had happened, luck should be on his side one day. As he stood at the crosswalk, an old lady called out and asked if he could help her cross the street. The young man gladly offered to carry her bags and let her lean on him as she walked. They reached the other side in no time, but his expression suddenly changed as he wished her a good day. She screamed for help out of nowhere and accused him of attacking her. Like before, his attempts to clear things up fell on deaf ears as loud accusations rang out, and people immediately assumed that he really was a terrible person. All he did was help her cross the street. He hadn't done anything wrong, but KY had no choice but to run for his life. Barely escaping, he realized that it must be a curse, but he had no idea why it was happening. Just then, a flower pot fell on the man who had never had a single malicious thought in his life. The ceramic shattered along with his head and he lay on the ground shaking, clueless as to what had happened. His entire body ached as he waited for someone to help him. The old lady from before appeared, saying that she found him while crying for help. She raised her staff over his defenseless body, swinging it down and delivering a painful blow, but she didn't stop. There against his trembling hands, the woman continued to swing with all her might, delivering death to a young and innocent man who only wanted to help others. Kay's eyes suddenly opened and he sat up suddenly, questioning if he was dead. A bright and glorious door appeared before him. With it came a divine angel who greeted him with a gentle smile. Extending his hand, he introduced himself as Gabriel, who had come to show the boy where he was going next. To his surprise, the next destination was hell. Unable to believe it, he furiously slammed his fist on the ground, saying that he had done nothing but spend his entire life living well. Upon hearing this, the angel pondered for a moment and confirmed that his words were true, as the numbers did not add up. He investigated and summoned the scales to verify what could have happened. The side with red flames fell with an incredible weight. As expected, there was a design flaw involved, as he lived a life with his karma completely reversed. Every living creature possesses karmic energy. Normally, the more good deeds one performs, the more likely it is that good will come back to them. It's the exact opposite in his case, and his gang instead generated negative karma. Given that he's done a massive amount of good, his karma is at its worst possible state, even worse than any heinous criminal. He couldn't believe it. Despite everything he's done, he will end up receiving the ultimate punishment. Gabriel confirms that he was indeed destined to suffer eternal agony in hell. Thankfully, he's an angel who never abandons those under his protection. In order to find a solution, he immediately snapped his fingers and summoned images of the various worlds in the universe. Earth was right in front of them, but sadly he couldn't return the boy to his original world where magic doesn't exist. The only option is to send him somewhere else, at least a world where someone similar to him exists. Opening a portal to a massive castle, the divine being suggests they go there. It is a place with multi-dimensional magic and the mage inside has just attempted a forbidden spell, leaving him with a body devoid of a soul. KY will take his place living his life. Although it may not be clear now, he will understand soon enough and will be given a small gift to make up for his reversed karma. A screen flashes before his eyes stating that he has obtained ultimate karma, an ability that temporarily grants 100 luck points for every good deed. The young man is told to find the white mage, as he is the only one who can send him back to Earth. Watching this quest appear, he is left perplexed as to what exactly he can do to complete it. Unfortunately, Gabriel does not know either, as he cannot interfere with what happens in the universe. With a bright smile, he assures the boy that luck will be on his side this time, apologizes one last time, and sends the young soul through the portal to his new world. Ku could feel himself falling for a moment. Suddenly, he opened his eyes as a completely different person. He was in an unfamiliar and empty hall, and as ridiculous as it may sound, it is true that he was given a second chance at life. Now he just has to find the white mage and return to Earth. Back in his old life, he walks forward to a large mirror and takes a look at his new appearance. It is surprisingly attractive and not at all bad. Now he just has to learn about the life the body's former owner was living. As he was thinking about this, the door behind him swung open, letting a bright light into the dark room. To his shock and amazement, voices roared from the other room, revering and cheering for the almighty black mage. As if that weren't enough, everyone in front of him was a monster. A servant approached from behind, begging his master not to forget his robes. Orcs, goblins, and demons screamed for the man who had never performed a single good deed and was known for committing the most heinous crimes in the world. The embodiment of evil itself, the Black Mage. KY urgently closed the door with trembling hands, seeing the army of monsters cheering for him. He realized that he had to get out of there soon. Just then the servant from before checked if everything was okay. He asked, "Who the hell is it?" The goblin's name is Grut, the Lord's newest advisor, who was just assigned yesterday. Regarding the hundreds of monsters in front of his castle, the Black Mage supposedly ordered everyone to gather today. After all, he was planning an attack on the surrounding human villages. Kay urgently tells him to cancel all plans related to that. Immediately, the advisor is surprised and disappointed, saying that he thought this is what the Lord wanted. Silently cursing to himself, he feels that he has no other choice and snaps his fingers. Flames consumed his body, but he remained emotionless, not understanding why he was setting himself on fire. The Lord's body moved on its own and he used his magic to dispel the flames, leaving his servant in shock. With that, the system window appeared next to him saying that the ultimate karma skill was activated. Brett knelt down begging for forgiveness and asking for death's mercy. He understands that it was his mistake, but he doesn't want to end up like the previous advisors whose soul screams still echo within the castle's halls. KY doesn't understand what he's talking about. Then the goblin points to the walls. Their countless heads have been placed on the wall, each belonging to an advisor sentenced to death. It's an incredible sight that makes him wonder what they did to end up this way. Not a single one lasted in the position, as they were all brutally sentenced to death for trivial sins. It was horrifying. In this world, the real monster was him, named Greet. He turned around with his entire body shaking. Upon seeing this, he is told that KY has no intention of harming him and is named as the Black Mage's advisor for life from that moment on. The goblin doesn't know how to thank him for the unexpected honor. For now he is told to answer even his strangest questions and is asked who he is. He is the greatest Black Mage in the universe, so much so that his name is literally the Black Mage. Figuring that his knowledge as an advisor was only being tested, Greg continued to answer, explaining that they are in his impregnable castle, which rules over the southern lands and serves as the headquarters for his monster army. KY has been reincarnated as a serial killer in charge of a monster kingdom. Asked how long he has been ruling over the land, the troubled goblin does some math and says 40 minutes. At first he realizes this is ridiculous and corrects it to 40 billion years. Since none of these were correct, Grut thinks he has once again made a fatal mistake, one enough to cause him to point a dagger directly at his chest. Thankfully, the hasty action is immediately halted, but doing so elicits a familiar response. Ultimate karma is activated, but KY is too preoccupied with ordering the advisor to continue living to notice. If he tries anything else, he will be met with an execution worse than any of his predecessors. He experimented. The bluff, fortunately, works, allowing the Black Mage to move on to his main mission of finding the White Mage as soon as possible. No matter how terrible his life is, he must return to the land of somehow. No matter how much fate tries to bring him down, he has to return to his mother, who always used to comfort him. She gave him the strength to keep going and is the greatest treasure in his life. He will definitely see her again. KY wonders if others can see the system window, but Greg confirms that they cannot. With this information, he moves on to ask about the white mage. However, the mere mention of the name sends shivers down the spine of every living being nearby. The goblins suddenly grit their teeth and continue to call him the most despicable scum in the world, leaping out the vivid insults. KY thanks him and wonders about the kind of magic he uses. He manipulates multi-dimensional magic that creates vortexes to send them to different worlds. In fact, thousands of his men have already been erased by this technique. The multi-dimensional magic proves that he is the only one who can send him home. The otherworldly dweller checks to see if he can use the same kind of magic, but it is completely incompatible with his black attribute. In other words, he has no more. There is no other choice but to ask for help. Unfortunately, the white mage is his greatest archenemy, who would choose death rather than help him. That is only natural, although he should be able to get help from Gabriel's blessing. Checking the additional information of the ultimate karma, he sees that the probability of fulfilling his wishes increases proportionally to his luck points. It means that he can reach his goal by accumulating good deed points. After saving Gret's life twice, he should have already earned 200 points. He goes ahead and takes a look to confirm, but is surprised to see his point count still at 0. Wondering if it is a bug in the system, he digs a little deeper and is surprised by what he finds. His karma status was eternally cursed and he set a new maximum record for misfortune. To make matters worse, his luck is sealed and cannot go above 0. As he began to wonder what to do next, another window popped up with a new quest. In order to lift the curse and unlock his luck, he has to perform a special good deed. KY exited the castle with Grut by his side, with his courage of luck sealed at 0 points. First, he has to find a way to complete his mission and break the curse. That said, he doesn't even know that this is supposed to be a special good deed. It seems that keeping his advisor alive wasn't enough, but he won't give up. Accumulating points throughout the castle hasn't been so easy either. He once stopped the beheading of a notorious criminal in his world, even ordering his release in front of an entire crowd. Several protested, disappointed in the Lord since they waited for the execution for so long. GRE justified his actions by saying that the serial killer will commit more crimes once released. Before the information could sink in, the goblins seconded the order, leading to an immediate massacre of the citizens in the audience. KY couldn't accumulate luck there, so he has to find another way to perform a special good deed. He has to let his mother know that he's still alive. Grut was visibly worried, having a terrible feeling about infiltrating the Western Territory. He questioned his plan, adding that they don't even know when the soldiers, since it can't be helped. Says they simply have to. They soon arrive at the village near the castle, which is said to be the home of a certain white mage. The multi-dimensional magic users are members of the innocent order called led by the white mage. Those in the order are his disciples, but they should be able to bribe one who was expelled. Fortunately, the one in the village should accept that job. Tion expelled after making money putting on a multi-dimensional magic show. This also earned him the name of the Greedy TI. It all suits the Black Mage, who is known for being particularly wealthy as the ruler of his own kingdom. Upon entering the small village, they see a small child crouched by the well. Brooke sees the young human male completely alone and defenseless and decides to finish him off for his beloved master, stopping him and saying he has a better idea. Kay approached the boy and asked what he was doing there without parents. Unfortunately, his father is deeply in debt to a mage and has to help pay it off. He confirms that the mage in question is the greedy one, Tyria, who should be putting on her usual show for everyone in the tavern. The Lord is ready to head there immediately, but his advisor still intended to cut the human up and serve him as a sashimi. To his surprise, KY hands the boy a single gold coin. His eyes shine with hope in contrast to the Black Mage, who is disappointed that it is not enough for his mission. On the other hand, Grut protested the idea of giving a human a single gold coin, so his master doubles down and provides an entire bag. While this causes various reactions, KY was solely concerned with how it is still not enough to complete his mission, wondering why someone so feared would do something so out of character. He sees the boy beaming with joy and considering the Dark Lord his hero. An idea clicks in his head and he mistakenly believes that KY intends to make him his successor. In an attempt to get closer to his hero, the boy will commit countless atrocities and eventually become his ally in ruling the southern lands. Although this is far from the real purpose, it is enough to calm the heart of the goblin. Inside the tavern was the usual sight of people enjoying drinks. Tion was nowhere to be found amidst the crowd, but there was something else that caught his attention. Everyone stared and fell silent as a single mirror in the middle of the room began to glow. Gluda lost its lord, as it was multi-dimensional magic at work. The live feed of beings professing their love for one another was playing out in front of everyone. As they were reaching their climax, a tentacle creature paused with a request and suddenly pulled a tentacle out of its face. It asked its beloved to take it with her, was bewildered and was about to give its answer when the screen suddenly blacked out. It was the end of the feed. Cut off at the best part, the viewers fervently questioned what was going to happen next. In order to restart the connection and access what was happening, they had to insert a gold coin. One avid viewer violently insisted that it was someone else's turn to pay the fee. However, he argued that it was already he had used up all his savings there and wanted to see something else. The tension in their voices rose as Kaminaba silently reached for the device and placed a coin before anyone could object. Accepting his payment, he released a light and instructed her to place her hand and think of the place she wished to observe. It was like a remote control. Arguments were replaced with joy as he watched the machine start up. Against his expectation, the robed man chose to observe what was happening on Earth. He was unsure of how it worked exactly, but he thought strongly of the person he wished to see. His eyes widened in surprise as the image of his mother appeared, not even caring about the people around him, calling out to her and trying to break through the screen. Everyone watched her walk through the rain and pass neighbors to exchange empty and lifeless greetings. It was impossible not to feel sorry for her, as it had only been a month since her son passed away. The poor mother still had not been able to recover. Driving in her car with a single stalk of a white flower, she headed to Kyo's resting place and stood there completely alone and in silence as he stared at the funeral photo of his dead son. After placing the flower, he left to rejoin society, an impossible task for a father who had just lost his son. He fell to his knees in the middle of the street, unable to stop crying even after the rain subsided. His pain for his son was unimaginable, and all he thought about each day was how much he missed him, how he was supposed to live without him. In the tavern, all the men watched the scene with unhappy faces and soon fell into fits of tears over the heartbreaking moment. Even GR couldn't help but cry. Noticing his master, he asks if the tears are part of his powers, but is surprised when KY suddenly falls to the ground. He could not accept what was happening to his mother. He finally understood the pain he was causing her and the painful result of her passing on Earth. K refused to accept how unfair the world was doing to him. Even more so, he refused to allow his mother to cry like that. He punches the mirror, desperate to be heard from the other side. Grot tells him to back off, as the multi-dimensional magic could destroy him, but all he cared about was reaching the person he loved the most. In response, the device activated its fail-safes and sent shockwaves of magic surging through his body. Still, he endured with everything he had, reaffirming his determination to reach his goal. He was still alive and he had to let him know. As such, he used his own magic to break through the shockwave and the mirror. Finally, his screams reached his mother's ears. She turned around and was stunned to see the gleaming light of the spell. Even more so when the image of her son appeared asking if she could see him. She couldn't believe it was really him. There wasn't enough time to explain what had happened, so he just asked her to hold on and wait for him to return to her. The mother was still in tears, but her fervor now smiled hopefully. Together they agreed to meet up soon. Unfortunately, K had exhausted all of his magic power and couldn't maintain the connection any longer. The system appeared, granting him the special good deed, Mother's Love. He managed to accomplish it and complete the mission. Upon finishing the Fountain of Parental Tears, he had successfully lifted the seal. His eternal curse now made him the Cursed One. Gabriel's karma luck points, which were temporarily disabled, could now be used at will, even if it was only for a short time. Accumulating good deeds should multiply his luck. Before he could think about it any further, the men from earlier continued their discussion about the show. One had nothing and used his bare feet after selling his shoes to kick another person. Thus a massive fight broke out throughout the bar, all because they wanted to see a show. In fact, they seemed willing to throw everything away. Because of this, Gru urged his master to leave before the multidimensional magic drove everyone crazy. However, a mug of beer hit his head and spilled all over his clothes. What remained of his patience quickly vanished and he removed his hood to curse and kill the wretched humans. For some reason, K turned his head. The scent of the beer was strange, but he was certain he had encountered it before in the Black Mage's memories. He had made a similar concoction, an addictive elixir. He moved to check the barrels and called his advisor to join him. There was something wrong with the tavern, one probably hidden nearby as expected. He found a bottle containing a strange blue liquid clinging to the beer containers. His suspicions confirmed as soon as he pulled it apart and took a look. It was the addictive elixir, no different from the one he had made. Tian had manipulated the alcohol to make everyone dependent on his magic and take their money. This was likely what happened to the boy by the well, whose father had likely squandered all of his family's money there. Just then, the boisterous men from earlier called out to the strangers as weird and low. Since they had started the last broadcast, they must have money to spend, which they were now forcing them to use on their useless shows. Their aggression triggered Groot to stand up to the threats against his master. Thankfully, KY stops him before he can kill everyone in the room, saying that he knows a way they can save everyone. In the Black Mage's mind were clear memories of the elixir's antidote. All the formulas and requirements were recorded somewhere. He finds it soon enough and immediately replicates the spell that can free the victims. He first cast it on everyone in the tavern. A strange clarity suddenly swept through the room and the minds of every guest cleared, allowing them to remember their families. Moving on, a huge magic circle appeared over the village and the antidote was cast on everyone else who might be affected. There were some arguing at home while a husband wishing to sell all his things to watch a random football match at the bar hit by the spell, realized what he was doing and apologized to his beautiful son for losing his mind for a moment. Just like that, the village was at peace, completely cleansed of the elixir corrupting its residents. Lute looked around in confusion, not understanding why everyone was so much nicer compared to before. His master's magic had stripped them of all aggression in their bodies. He considers it the best punishment, as none of them will ever taste the joy of battle now. Those who were once like proud lions have now become as helpless as worms as ever. He believes that his lord's ferocity is unparalleled in this world. Meanwhile, KY was worried, as purifying the village granted him a massive amount of luck points that were pouring in endlessly. It was perfect and everything was going according to his plan. With his luck nearing 240,000, he can finally obtain what he wants most using multidimensional magic. However, the walls of the tavern suddenly exploded. Everyone turned towards the smoke, but they didn't seem too bothered, as it was only Tira, whom they already knew. The banished mage stepped forward and demanded to know who was trying to ruin their business. The outsiders encountered Tira for the first time and were shocked to discover that she was actually a woman. Their bad suspicions were confirmed and they saw that all the elixir had evaporated. Of beer, the culprit behind the mass purification is sought out among the crowd, but the regulars deny having done anything to the drinks. As such, he turns his attention to the two people, the weirdo and the brat, as he has never seen either of them there before. Before they can respond, he finds the bottles once connected to the barrels overturned on the ground. KY is accused of being a member of the order who are now after her as well, telling her to mark her words. He swears to never give in to trash like them and summons a burning magic circle beneath his feet. The black mage curses everything. The circle of flames and its power were all too vivid in his memories, as there was no time to think. He lets his gut and instincts move his body, which for some reason throws a gold coin somewhere beside him. He freezes, completely confused by the result of his intuition. Tian was fully committed to killing him on the spot and the massive explosion beneath him proved it as it consumed him completely. His ultimate karma activated, leaving him with 3 minutes of pure luck. The coin he shot earlier hit a water pipe which miraculously opened up and put out all the flames covering it. None of the mages could believe what had just happened, but it was a little too close for comfort. KY wonders if he unconsciously activated a spell, just like when he saved Grut in the castle. But what happened now doesn't feel the same at all. He simply tossed a coin seeing it lodged in the pipe. He finally understands how it works. Meanwhile, the goblin was not spared from the fire and had no choice but to remove the robes that covered his identity. Unfortunately, this reveals his true nature to all the humans around him. After an awkward pause, the reality that a monster was out there sank in and the humans charged in to kill their sworn enemy. Kay stepped between them and told his advisor to stay back. He also removed his cloak, but instead of anger and violence, fear filled the hearts of the humans as they realized they were in the presence of the infamous Black Mage. Every single one of them fled, except for the banished member of the order. For some reason, Terrace smiled as she greeted the great enemy in person. The bounty on his head was worth 100 billion gold coins, but from what he had heard, he was so weak as an unsullied that the white mage turned his head away from him in shame. If he put in everything he had, he might be able to defeat him and become the richest person by the end of it all. It was a pity, but KY hadn't mastered his powers yet and would die if he fought him head on. So he had to gamble all his luck once more. He praised and admired the opponent right in front of him, but added that she might be lacking quite a bit of focus. The flames he had unleashed earlier had ignited into a trail of alcohol that led to the rest of the barrels. As she belatedly noticed this, KY was already retreating to safety with Grut in his arms. He moved with nothing more than pure instinct, which urged him to leap out of the nearest open window. They were met with the cold night air as they dove to the ground. As the fire continued to travel, the two landed inside a metal tank and were sealed in safety. Just a second later, the entire tavern was caught in a massive explosion, destroying everything but the tank they were hiding in. Now all that was left was to escape under the cover of the smoke. They made their way through the remains of the establishment, still ablaze, as Grud jumped in glee at the thought of deliciously roasted humans. The battle was not over yet, however, as Tibby appeared and called out to the Black Mage, saying that it was still 100 years too early for him to defeat her. He looked at his system window and saw that his luck still had 1 minute remaining, meaning that he had to move now if he was to somehow defeat the enemy. With this he mocks her, stating that she doesn't even need to use her power to win and asks if she honestly thinks she can beat him. This provokes her as expected. The greedy white mage fires a torrent of flames, not willing to be underestimated, nearly burning herself to a crisp, but KY trips on a rock and dodges the blow. As he falls to the ground, still unfinished, He summons another magic circle beneath him and several more from the surrounding areas. There was no escape now, as she was determined to use everything she had to finish him off. Thankfully, there were 5 seconds left on her miraculous luck. At the final moment, just as he was about to be incinerated, a burst of oil sent him flying high into the sky, away from the fire. He couldn't believe it, but he dodged all of her attacks. The nearby townspeople saw it and concluded that the explosion from the tavern caused oil to gush out from deep underground. Having exhausted all her strength, Tira fell helplessly to her knees, defeated, unable to even move anymore, and wondered if this was really where she was going to die. To her surprise, the flames disappeared. Glut called out to her master, saying that it was too early and she hadn't cooked herself enough. They don't understand, but KY stepped forward and knelt beside his enemy, promising that he had no intention of leaving her behind there. As he looked at her weakened face, a memory invaded his mind. Among the memories of the Black Mage, he saw the original owner of the body collapsing in the middle of a burning chapel in tears. He was holding the lifeless body of a woman amidst the heat and destruction. She screamed in agony and pain, refusing to accept that she had just died in his arms. Tira was blushing from how close she was being held, while KY was thinking about the woman who died in the Black Mage's arms. The one in his suddenly leaned down to kiss him on the lips. Shocked by the unexpected action, he turned red as a tomato and jumped back, questioning what the hell he was doing on his own. She apologizes and says that she thought it was what he wanted her to do, feeling that it was his fault. He turns his head and explains that he was just lost in thought. Regardless, the girl is willing to do anything he asks if he spares her life. The Black Mage assures that he has no intention of killing her, extends his hand and asks her to follow him instead. It turns out that he needs his power. Though confused, she takes his hand and walks alongside him. Meanwhile, Brute stood frozen, his jaw slack and unable to comprehend what was happening in front of him. A check of his window tells Ku that all his luck bonuses have been used up and his power has been drained. Now his luck points were back to 0. He was able to unleash the power before due to his connection with his mother, but only temporarily. It is likely due to his cursed state, which should have a quest that can fix it. Taking a look, he is surprised to see a tab stating that he has committed too many atrocities, but he cannot explore it further, as they have already reached Tara's residence. She states that it is a bit cramped despite being completely spacious and luxurious inside while grilling about the gold. KY asks if it was purchased with the oldest money, to which she assures him that the mansion was at least passed down from her parents. He smells a lie, letting him pass. He directly states that he needs his multi-dimensional magic, particularly to go to another planet. The statement makes her call him crazy, but she doesn't even get far before finding the Gablin blade near his face. Told to mind his words, he only explains that he is too weak. Since his request requires astronomical levels of mana, only the White Mage would be able to do that with his current power. The only thing he can do is see the state of the other worlds. Unfortunately, returning to his world will not be so easy after all. He smiles to himself, finding it fortunate that it is the all-powerful Black Magician who will surely improve if taught the basics as such. He tells her to act as his magic teacher and pass on everything she knows. The ridiculous request makes her wonder if he is an idiot who has lost his mind, but Gret's glare turns it into a polite questioning of the strange request. The Gablin states that his lord is testing her knowledge and failing to get it right would lead to her being consumed by merciless flames. Getting the picture. He shares that he honestly cannot teach her simply because he is the Black Magician, even if he is the great and all-powerful Black Magician. There are 2 opposing types of magic in the world, white magic and black magic. The more a magician masters one side, the more useless the other becomes. In other words, the Lord of Black Magic and sworn enemy of the White Magician cannot learn the technique. Furthermore, multi-dimensional magic is the epilogue of white magic spells. For someone who has mastered the other side of the coin, it is the least compatible power, almost akin to telling a shark to climb mountains. Their conversation is interrupted by loud noises nearby, prompting the 3 to rush to the windows and look. There they see Locinos armed with torches and jorks to punish their enemies. To make matters worse, they have brought soldiers to support their cause. Tira corrects them and says that it is the Immaculate Order. Everyone steps aside to form a path. Walking along was the White Mage whose presence alone sent shivers down the spines of his enemies. It was all over. KY had not imagined that his greatest adversary would come so soon. Given that he is not an opponent he can fight, he has no choice but to flee right now, but not to feel. Unfortunately, she cannot simply walk away and abandon her palace along with all her money. She does not care about that and drags her along. Before they could reach them, the monster lord summoned a magic circle to take them all back home. They vanished in that instant, leaving nothing but the stars of the circle for the Oldeness to find. They arrived too late. Back at the dark castle, a group of followers gathered around a familiar circle and chanted for space to bend and the gates to open. KY and the others appeared in the center and he was pleased to see that they had safely returned to their stronghold. It was fortunate that he had prepared an emergency escape route in advance, particularly with the transfer magic that Glut helped set up. As he finally began to appreciate dark magic, He watched the followers around him fall to the ground one by one until none were left standing. When he questioned what the hell was happening, the goblin simply explained that they were the corpses of those sacrificed to the transfer magic. Their bodies were left there broken. Glut took pride in teleportation magic, which was one of the most powerful spells in the world. Goblin Kyo was furious that he was not informed, but the advisor dismissed it as such a minor and irrelevant detail. What he did not know was how such minor details now burdened his master with bad deeds that contributed to his karma. In a flashback, a busy street in the town was filled with merchants and townspeople going about their day. Inside a shop, a young woman, Silva, who would become a witch in the future, silently swept the floor as she was surrounded by stacked goods and pottery. Startled, she accidentally knocked over a large clay jar as her balance slipped, causing it to crash to the floor and shatter into pieces. Her boss shouted angrily, accusing her of breaking it again as he apologized. Silva backed away as he shouted that she was completely useless. The boss violently threw her out of the shop and ordered her to get out of his sight. Enraged, he warned her never to return. Silva collapsed outside, weakly reaching out as tears welled up in her eyes until the shop door slammed shut in front of her, cutting her off completely. Silva walked down the street with her head down as the people around her whispered and stared. The soldiers whispered about her, calling her a cursed being and warning others to stay away. She sat alone on the ground, ignored as people walked past without helping. Night fell and Silva huddled against a wooden pillar as the rain poured down on her, exhausted and soaked. She lay motionless on the cold stone floor. In her sleep, she trembled as if trapped in a painful nightmare. Suddenly, a strange green light appeared nearby and pulsed softly in the darkness. Silva opened her eyes as the glowing green orb spoke directly to her and asked her to eat it. The orb assured her that everything would be fine if she accepted it. In the present, KY stood outside the window at dusk and packed her bag. His system screen materializes in front of him, explaining that for every good deed he gains 100 luck points, but their effects are temporary. Realizing that this is the ultimate karma system and finally understanding how it works, he admits that it was a struggle, but he managed to accumulate a few good deeds in this cursed realm, remembering how two orcas were furiously fighting each other, prompting K to take action as his eyes sharpened. He shouted for the fight to stop as energy surged around them. The two orcs glared at each other as the moment froze and their anger disappeared. Their heavy weapon instantly dropped as one orc apologized and called the other brother. The other responded gently, expressing their compassion for each other. Kai's system notifies and confirms that he has gained 100 luck points for one good deed. In a few weeks he manages to increase his luck just a little bit in a few weeks, but since his current state is the cursed one, he is unable to receive the benefits. He activates ultimate karma knowing that it is the only way to release his accumulated luck. He decides to consume all of his stored luck points at once and is lucky for the duration of the points spent. He then learns that luck lasts until the points return to 0. Before the fight ends, he purifies a village and saves over 200,000 luck points in life. At that moment, he instinctively activates ultimate karma without his conscious decision. For 3 minutes, he exists in a state of absolute and infinite luck. Thanks to that luck, he effortlessly defeats Tyria without suffering any damage. KY realizes that if he performs a good deed that affects millions, the power of the system will scale infinitely. Clenching his fist, he steels his resolve with a confident smile and certainty. He declares that with this power, he will finally be able to return to Earth. Without hesitation, he pushes open a massive door and calls out to Grut, asking if everything is ready. As he advances, Grut prepares a mount and presents it to him here. When the preparations are complete, he walks towards the door and begins his next journey. TIR blesses him, wishing Kyo good luck. Meanwhile, Gruden tells everyone to immediately set off riding through the city at dusk. Kai's new adventure officially begins at the edge of the kingdom to accomplish a massive good deed. Greek confirms the objective of their mission without hesitation after KY asks her. Meanwhile, Silva's glowing green figure is revealed to be the source of the world's deadliest disease. KY agrees and tells Grut to lead the way. The Gablin points ahead stating that the destination is right there. KY freezes in confusion as to what right here really means. Gret proudly reveals a small house stating that Silva lives there. KY explodes in disbelief, shouting that Gret told her he lived at the edge of the kingdom. Gret studies the map again while KY is clearly not convinced. The Gablin mutters that his explanation was seriously lacking. Angrily, KY points out that the house is only 100 meters from the castle. The two stand uncomfortably close to the horses as the truth sinks in. Annoying, Ku orders Grut to wait in the castle. He advances alone towards the house, standing at the door. He quietly calls out Silva's name, knowing that she is one of the most evil beings on this planet. He steals from himself thinking that if he can purify her he can save millions. With a tense expression, he prays that the antidote will work. Suddenly he throws the door open, but recoils in shock, hesitating and questioning if she is the witch he is looking for. Silva appears smiling as he greets his master, rushes forward and hugs him tightly saying that he has finally returned. Overwhelmed, she tells him that she missed him terribly. KY panics, insisting that it is not what she thinks. Silva excitedly shows him freshly prepared spores. He proudly holds a glowing spore in his hand, laughing, throws it and tells him to see that they also fly. The spores explode outward, scattering violently. He explains that he improved them using Kai's advice, making them much more resistant. He casually states that this will ensure millions more lives are lost this year. Nearby, a child coughs violently as the spores take effect. Kai watches in horror as the number millions echoes in his mind, a victim collapsing, reinforcing the scale of the disaster. Silva states that she is connected to each spore and can feel the suffering they cause. She happily thanks him, saying that his help has made her stronger. Kay realizes that she does not understand the damage she is causing. He hands her medicine, saying that he has prepared something to make her even stronger. Silently, Kay learns of the disease and explains that it is caused by a contamination centered around Silva. He believes that if she purifies herself, everything will stop as she drinks the antidote. She thanks him cheerfully. Moments later, he says that he feels fine and promises to continue filling the world with spores. KY panics as he realizes that even the maximum dose had no effect on her. He grimly decides that he has no choice but to check the core of the corruption. Green energy erupts around him as he activates his power. He sees countless glowing threads extending outwards. Staring at the massive web, he realizes there are many more than 1 million. Despair sets in as he admits the corruption is too strong to purify. He whispers Silva's name, torn by the truth. Looking back, he remembers when he cheerfully told Silva that his spores would spread across the continent, a peaceful memory from Estella contrasting cruelly with the present. Silva smiles knowing the spores rain down on men, women, and children alike. He declares not a single one will be left alive. In a sudden and brutal moment, scarlet erupts as Silva is struck down. A blade fills the scene as Silva looks up in stunned confusion, as Crenestro tears up and realizes this is the only way. Silva is barely standing and calls out to Ku with waning strength. He looks at her with a broken heart, realizing this is the only way to free her until he finally draws his sword. As her body falls, the green core manifests writhing with evil energy and calls out to Kyo. The corrupt entity questions her intent and interference. It admits that killing the host weakened it, but did not end it. KY declares that he came not to challenge it, but to destroy it. As he raises his hand, he unleashes eternal flame, flooding the space with overwhelming power. The corruption recoils in fury, screaming at his defiance. It advances toward KY as it warns that it will definitely regret its decision. Surrounded by accelerated magical output. However, Kiona's attack shoots upward, piercing through the corrupt entity. Her eyes sharpen as she channels absolute control over the spell. Lightning erupts, extending endlessly beyond the atmosphere. Green energy like lightning ripples across the heavens. The explosion ripples across the sky, signaling the collapse of the corruption. Elsewhere, a sick child lies in bed as energy reaches out to the world. The child awakens in shock as strength returns to his body. A system message appears, stating, "Good deed granting luck points as other victims have also recovered." Families are reunited as people realize they are healed while luck notifications quickly pile up across the city. The planet itself glows as the accumulated good deeds multiply. KY looks on in disbelief as the numbers steadily increase. His luck points skyrocket beyond comprehension. The system confirms that his luck has surpassed 1 billion, leading Ku to realize that this power guarantees his return to Earth. He gently holds Silva, refusing to abandon his fate. He vows to save her before returning home. A faint smile forms as he steals her resolve. He activates ultimate karma, enveloping him in divine energy. The system announces peak luck reached with limited time remaining. He acknowledges the power he has finally obtained. The system confirms his status as divine luck by enveloping them both in protection. Meanwhile, a colossal beam of light erupts into space as a UFO is caught in the explosion, prompting its rider to scream in terror. The massive meteoro obliterates the UFO in mid-flight, sending the aliens into panic. It is realized that the meteoro is on a collision course with the planet. Elsewhere, the White Mage watches events unfold. It is revealed that he is preparing to annihilate an entire centaur tribe. Panic spreads as the White Mage arrives while the survivors are ordered to flee immediately. The centaurs fear that the White Mage intends to drag them into another dimension. A golden beam is unleashed, but their magic is reflected and torn apart by the force of the meteoro. The collision overwhelms the surrounding area in praise. The catastrophe concludes with absolute domination. A golden beam streaks across the sky, aiming directly for the capital. The impact slams into the city. Buildings shatter under the overwhelming force. The Luciadora explodes as the impact tears through the ground. Dust and debris consume the silent ruins. Kay looks on in shock, struggling to process what just happened. His expression hardens as he senses something unnatural. He realizes the phenomenon is multi-dimensional magic. Seeing his mother on the ground with such immense power, he believes he can get through by grabbing Silva. He begs her not to leave his side and promises to save her with this power, calling out to his mother. He reaches the portal and promises to be back as soon as he saves Silva. He forces his body forward as the golden energy lashes out at him. The resistance overwhelms him, causing him to falter mid-step. He screams desperately, trying to reach his mother through the barrier. She turns around, feeling something strange calling to her. The door begins to close, cutting him off completely. KY struggles, realizing he cannot get through. Silva weakly reaches for his face, telling him that some things in this world cannot be changed. Explains that white magic cannot be used by Kyo, as he is a black mage, even with all the luck in the world, telling him that the dead cannot be brought back. As KY kneels in the ruins, his hand shakes as he presses against the cracked ground. KY cries as he holds Silva, refusing to accept this ending. Her spectral form appears, leaving here or there speechless, claiming to have seen everything, including her power and her destiny. She tells him that painful choices are inevitable. Even if her heart is filled with regret, she must move on. She admits that she never wanted to hurt anyone, revealing that she only wanted to be loved. Silva thanks her for everything. As her form begins to fade, Kay watches her disappear. His resolve hardens. He holds her one last time, unable to hide his face from the pain. As he lies in peace, KY notes that Silva caused tens of millions of deaths on this planet, and what awaits him is the deepest, darkest hell. Kai's system appears and informs him that his ultimate karma will last for 1 minute and 30 seconds. Suddenly he vows never to abandon the most unfortunate girl on this planet. Forbidden dark magic surges as he invokes an ancient arcana, causing him to enter astral ascension, advancing beyond the boundaries of fate itself. Silva's solitary soul floats in a crimson void, isolated and suspended in silence. Confusion sets in as he becomes conscious, unable to recognize his surroundings. He turns around, sensing an unseen presence watching from the darkness. A massive crimson eye opens, revealing the abyss and asserting its dominance. The voice declares her soul hollow, eroded by the void beyond repair. Shock and denial wash over her as she explains that she was manipulated by an evil entity. A judgment screen appears, naming Silva a sinner responsible for countless deaths. The verdict is delivered, which is one of eternal punishment, atonement through purgatory. The abyss confirms that the records are absolute and beyond appeal. She is condemned as irredeemable. Her fate, sealed by the immutable, she desperately denies the accusations, insisting she never intended such horrors. Tears fall as she realizes the punishment cannot be undone and calls the verdict unjust. The abyss coldly questions her sense of justice. Unmoved by her despair, the crimson eye looms closer. Its crushing presence, as it commands her to wipe away her tears, declares a cruel truth, which is that no one will come to save her from this fate. Silva's eyes shake as she begs for it to stop. Fear takes hold of her. Lightning suddenly erupts as an overwhelming force descends upon the crimson eye. Her body reacts instinctively, a familiar hand holding her gently. Kay arrives and cuts through the chaos, urging Silva to hold on. The abyss reacts with fury, sensing an intruder within its domain. The black archangels are summoned, ordered to capture the interference, immediately tearing the void apart with lethal intent. A radiant barrier forms, protecting Silva as ultimate karma shields them. A massive beam of power erupts, forcing the attackers to retreat as they give chase. KY realizes there are more of them and they are still in pursuit. The danger closes in quickly. Elsewhere in purgatory, a distant presence stirs. At the same moment, Sisyphus continues his eternal punishment, unaware of the distortion unfolding. His ordeal is finally over at last until his ankle suddenly breaks. Another system alert confirms. Ultimate karma remains active. The seconds count. Sisyphus screams in shock, the boulder crashing towards him. Suddenly, KY sees it rolling and notices Sisyphus' predicament. The boulder is about to hit a sharp edge as KY approaches and is unable to react. His luck value suddenly spikes even higher as the countdown continues. The colossal mass crashes downward, forcing the black archangels to halt. They freeze in shock at the impossible interruption. The brutal impact continues to scatter them completely. However, KY steadies himself, declaring that everything is under control. He notes that they have already made it far enough into purgatory to escape. Confidence fills his expression as he declares that they are almost there. A large set of heavenly gates come into view, radiating divine authority. Black archangels suddenly appear, weapons crossing as they block the path. KY pauses in disbelief after they reach them, as the black archangels command him to turn back after breaking through the nightmarish shell of hell. A devastating blow erupts, overwhelming their formation in a single moment. The black archangels are flung away, feathers scattering as they lose control. Kay looks back in shock, wondering who could have done this. Suddenly, Gabriel descends from the sky, blocking the path ahead with light, divine, overwhelming. He calmly approaches and promises to take care of Silva as he calls Kay his friend, asking him to drop her off at the gates of heaven. Kay watches silently, feeling relieved. He reaches out for the door without hesitation. The word heaven echoes in Kai's mind as light floods his vision. He silently calls out to Silva, acknowledging his long suffering. He insists that there is a place more suitable for her than heaven. KY shoots upwards, tearing through the sky towards the gates. Finally reaching the gates of Nirvana, Gabriel screams for KY to stop, warning him that Silva cannot pass, revealing that Nirvana is declared a realm reserved for only the purest of souls. warning him that they will only crash directly into the door. The light intensifies as KY continues forward regardless as the system screen activates, revealing that ultimate karma has been activated and his luck is skyrocketing beyond limits. Time begins to count down as his power surges uncontrollably. KY whispers Silva's name, his unwavering resolve quickening as he declares that his nightmare will end here. Gabriel panics, accusing Kay of trying to completely destroy it, warning that the door will not open. Resisting with divine strength, cracks forming as pressure builds from within the door itself, freezing Gabriel in shock as the impossible happens. The door opens from the inside. A blinding golden presence emerges, radiating serenity and revealing a golden Buddha who questions what is happening. The divine being notes that even Nirvana itself reacts, disturbed by Kai's shock as it charges forward. The Buddha is stunned, confused by the intrusion. Silva's form appears bathed in warm light. His eyes widen as realization sets in. He joyfully realizes that he has reached heaven. He calls out to Kay as his expression softens in relief. He thanks him for everything. As he floats further away, Gabriel looks on in disbelief, admitting that he has indeed made it. The Buddha angrily summons Gabriel, asking what the black mage is doing in his realm, but calmly explains that it was all a misunderstanding. Kai's body begins to fade as he fulfills his task. The smoke begins to clear as he regains consciousness and awakens in the rubble lying next to Silva's body. Silva lies peacefully, eyes closed and free from suffering. Kola watches her silently, waiting for her to find happiness at last. In the meantime, her past is confirmed and she lies within Nirvana itself. Silva sits alone by the shore, drawing symbols in the dirt. Someone softly calls her name, her new friends inviting her to play. She smiles and accepts their invitation. Excited about her new life, her final drawing remains to capture the memory of KY and Grut. Meanwhile, back on Earth, a tranquil city skyline marks the beginning of another ordinary day. A set of keys are collected, signaling that someone is about to leave. The door slides open. Light spills into the doorway. Suddenly, a woman greets Miss Kuroda warmly as she walks in with a man at her side. Kai's mother listens silently, her expression unreadable. She returns the greeting calmly, her voice gentle. The girl comments that Kuroda seems in better spirits today and asks if he will go to his son's grave to offer flowers. Kuroda politely declines the suggestion put before her. She looks up at the sky, believing that her son can still hear her. A golden ring forms, showing the group reflected within its light, watching through the portal with longing eyes from the other side. She presses her hand against the barrier, separating them. Tyrion doesn't notice, lingering, wondering what is occupying his thoughts. Gret praises him as the most intelligent mind in existence, convinced that KY must be planning something terrifying until she realizes something. No,